Okay, welcome back to the Mystical Machine Gun Radio Hour. Let's see how far we can get through these data files, shall we? We're starting off with Mama. The Chiral Network 1. Who? Mama. When? 3 years ago, before first expedition's departure. Where? Central Knot City HQ. So, the core infrastructure is complete. The basic Cupid-ready Chiral Network setup is good to go. Now all we have to do is connect Central Knot City to Capital and prove that it actually works. Sadly, I won't be here to see it. I've been assigned to the expedition team's second group, so I'll be heading west with the others. The people in charge here are the best of the best. They'll have the network operational inside of 3 years just as planned, I'm sure of it. And while they're seeing to that, we'll be visiting towns and whatnot across the country and putting the facilities in place for when things are finally up and running. Amelie and the others in the lead group will be forging the connections and laying the groundwork to make sure everything goes to plan. Afterwards, we'll just need to link it all up with operational Cupids, and that should be that. It's kind of like the Apollo missions back in the day. They used the 3-stage rockets to get to the moon, right? Well, we're using a 3-stage process to do something almost as revolutionary. Chiral Network 2. Mama. When? 3 years ago, before first expedition's departure. Where? Central Knot City HQ. In a way, the Chiral Network makes use of the beach to allow us to travel through time. See, sending large amounts of data takes large amounts of time, as you'd expect. But the thing about beaches is, well, time doesn't pass the same way in them as it does out here. Might not even pass at all. Think about how the light from the stars in the sky we see was produced thousands and thousands of years ago. Routing data through the beach is like jumping to a point earlier in that journey, thereby cutting it shorter. Much shorter. Just imagine, massive amounts of data transferred almost instantaneously. That's what we're trying to achieve with the Chiral Network, in a nutshell. In theory, the network allows us to reconstruct old data that would otherwise be lost, and to do so with fragmented resources. Using what's known as Evo-Devo analysis, we could take the finger bone of a dinosaur, say, and extrapolate from that not only the dinosaur's form, but its composition. Internal, external, even its thought processes, to a degree. Anything's possible with chiral computing. In other words, we won't just be able to reunite a nation, we'll be able to reclaim everything we lost in the Death Stranding. More even. Theoretically, we could go back as far as the birth of the planet and beyond, and thanks to the beach, we'll be able to compile all that data in one place and reduce the processing time for even the most complex analyses to effectively zero. Drones in the Singularity. Mama, several months ago, unknown. Yep, the bot is good to go. We're putting it through some field tests within the network service area. Should have the results before long. Delivery efficiency within a given region is expected to improve following a successful Cupid connection as well. No, that won't be a problem. The bot's just a cargo carrier. Human input is required to accept orders and set coordinates. Drone syndrome shouldn't be a factor, and the Singularity? Not a chance. Well, think about it. AI doesn't die. It might get upgraded or replaced, but that's not at all comparable to death. So it has no reason to fear it, you see. The concept is completely foreign. Incomprehensible. Death comes to all living things, but only humans have the capacity to understand the implications, to imagine what it means to no longer exist. That's one limitation AI won't ever overcome. That's the reason it won't ever surpass human intelligence. Lockne and Mulligan. Who? Lockne. When? 3 years ago. Where? Bridges HQ. You know what we used to dream about? Seeing what's beyond those clouds up there. We spent our whole lives beneath the Chiralium sky. It's all we've ever known. But we also know that the world used to be so much bigger. Our parents told us. They were researchers who worked for NASA. Though these days most people wouldn't know what that was. It went up in smoke around the same time America did, and all our parents' work went with it. But we still have our dreams. The one thing our parents gave us that can never be taken away. Mulligan and I were named after a pair of craters left by meteors which struck the Earth 450 million years ago. Those craters are proof that this planet is part of something bigger, that we exist within a vast interconnected universe. Our names serve as a reminder of this fundamental truth. Symbols of our parents' hope that our isolation is only temporary. That's why we joined Bridges too, to bring the people of this country together again and to one day reunite this planet with the greater universe that surrounds it. Preppers. Fragile. 2 years ago, Lake Knot City. When I was a little girl, my father told me that preppers were people who decided long ago that they couldn't trust their nation to be there for them anymore, that the bonds between us had grown weak long before the Death Stranding. We once had a network spanning the whole wide world that could send items from anywhere to anywhere and connect anyone with anything. But still, we were isolated. Still, we were alone. Some liked it that way and even wanted more. They wanted walls along their borders, wanted to turn away refugees and outsiders. Some even wanted new nations all their own. They began to see the state as an enemy of their freedom, not a protector of it. The ones most far gone, they didn't trust the country to defend them if something went really wrong. War, terrorism, natural disaster, you name it. So they built shelters and stocked full of supplies in preparation for the worst. And then the worst happened. The Death Stranding. America ceased to exist and their shelters became their homes, where they would live and they would die. But while they'd prepared, they hadn't prepared to live there forever, which is why they wound up relying on us couriers so heavily. My father and I didn't want to go back to the old America. We didn't want a country that pushed people apart. We wanted one that brought them together, that allowed them to support one another, and that was what we tried to work toward. Cryptobiotes. Fragile. 2 years ago, Fragile Express HQ. We call these bugs cryptobiotes. They were recorded in reference books and databases back before the Death Stranding, but nobody ever thought to give them a proper classification, so cryptobiotes they stayed. They're named for the process of cryptobiosis, which means hidden life. When environmental conditions get too harsh or resources too scarce, cryptobiotes can shut down their metabolic processes and enter an almost death-like state in order to survive. Tardigrades and sleeping chironomids are capable of this too, but cryptobiotes are on a whole other level. They can survive anything and anywhere, even on the beach or in the sea. And they aren't capable of prolonging only their own lives. Humans who eat them acquire a limited resistance to timefall too. You won't find them lying around just anywhere though. You need to know where to look. Not many people even knew they existed until recently, so next to no research has been done, but now that their beneficial properties have been recognised, I'm willing to bet they'll play an important role in helping us to understand the beach, the Death Stranding, and everything else. 2 years ago, distribution centre west of capital Knot City. Who? Benjamin Hancock. When? 2 years ago. Where? Distribution centre west of capital Knot City. It's been about a year now since we came here with the rear guard. The first folks through did us the favour of setting up the chiral relay and patching things up before we arrived. So we're doing alright. Not so sure about everyone else though. Folks back home sound kind of freaked out. We don't know what's going on in Central or Capital, let alone how Amelie and the others who kept heading west are doing. But something doesn't feel right. What's more, a lot of the guys have developed some kind of agoraphobia. Like the thought alone of going outside scares the shit out of them. See, the distro centres and way stations around these parts here aren't like the ones back east. They're much more isolated, out in the middle of nowhere. Can't help but feel cut off from the world. And there's not a lot of staff on hand, neither, which means you often have to do the work of two guys, which can make it that much lonelier too. And then you factor in the terrorism rumours. Also, is it just me, or does it feel like there's more mules out there these days? Don't get me wrong, I know they're not out to get us. All they want is our cargo, right? Well, that doesn't change the fact that they're not making our work any easier, especially since a lot of these guys used to be first-rate porters and could run rings around us if they hadn't, you know. Still, for now, the network systems are up and running and we're just holding out for the day when the second expedition comes through with a working Cupid. Till then, we'll keep things chugging along. That much we can do. For bridges and country, am I right? Timefall and power failures. Igor. 3 years ago, Central Knot City. I volunteered to join Bridges. Signed up with my brother Victor. See, we both remembered when America was still America. When we still had planes and satellites. When we were still connected to everyone and everything. The world was different. Bigger. And we wanted it back. He was chosen for the first expedition and hit the road damn near straight away. Me? I got told to hang back here in Central, which was okay, I guess. Corpse disposal means taking your fair share of timefall in the line of duty. You get a sense for it after a while. A sixth sense for when the clouds are about to open up. Of course, the clouds themselves are a big tell, And an inverse rainbow is a guarantee you're in for some shit. But there are smaller signs too. Changes in the air, a smell on the wind. When it hits, you've got power outages to deal with. Far as I understand it, which ain't all that far, it's to do with higher concentrations of chiralium causing electromagnetic interference or something, which also interacts with water and kicks up clouds of ozone, which then makes the temperature drop like a rock. Anyway, I may be used to timefall, but that don't mean I'm immune to it. Believe me, I'm younger than I look. My big bro would take a lot of pleasure in telling you that if he could see me now. The lake at Ground Zero. Victor, 2.5 years ago, Port Knot City. When I first laid eyes on the lake here at Ground Zero, I was blown away by the sheer size of it. I never imagined anything could be so huge. This was just after the Death Stranding, and not many people had seen the craters up close yet. Back when I was still living with my parents and my brother on the East Coast, an explosion like nothing the world had seen before tore a gaping hole in the heart of America. There were all kinds of rumours floating around at the time that it was a meteor, that it was just a nuke dropped by another country. I was just a kid, but even I could tell the adults didn't have a clue, so you can imagine how I felt. And then we found out that there had been other explosions, not just here in America, but the world over. By the time we learned they were void outs, and what void outs were, the country was pretty much done. But hey, that was then, and this is now, and things are looking up. I just got told my kid brother's still alive. Word is, he's heading up a corpse disposal team in capital Knot City. Handled his shit well enough to get picked for the second expedition. 3 more years, and he'll be out here with me. Can't wait to see him again. Interview with the geologist. The geologist, 1 year ago. Personal shelter. I remember it was just before I joined the expedition when I found those documents in Bridges HQ, research papers that predated the Death Stranding. People used to believe that dinosaurs had gone extinct at the end of the Cretaceous period, 65 million years ago. But when this fellow investigated various locations where late Cretaceous dino fossils had been found, he came to the startling conclusion that there was hardly any evidence, anywhere on Earth, that supported the theory that dinosaurs had survived until the end of the Cretaceous. In other words, almost all of them had been wiped out long before that. The only place where there were fossils that did support the traditional theory was here, in North America, which suggested that this was the last place of the Earth to have been inhabited by dinosaurs. Not everyone agreed with this analysis at the time, but let's say he had it right. That would mean that there is evidence of a mass extinction hidden right here, right beneath our feet. Evidence which could prove invaluable in understanding the one on the horizon. Did the dinosaurs who happened to live here just get lucky? Or is there something special about this place that allowed them to survive? I'd love to get to the bottom of it, but I'm not sure I have what it takes. I'm not like Heartman. I don't have dooms or any other unique traits. Still, I want to make myself useful. I want to research the Stranding and help uncover the truth behind it. That's why I joined the expedition team, after all. Interview with the paleontologist. The paleontologist, 1 year ago. Personal shelter. In the period since the very first forms of life arose here on Earth, the planet has witnessed a number of mass extinctions. And as you're no doubt aware, the most significant of these are known as the Big Five. The first marked the end of the Ordovician period, while the next, at the end of the Devonian period, wiped out almost all marine life. But the third of these extinctions, at the end of the Permian period around 250 million years ago, was even worse. 96% of all marine organisms and 70% of land organisms died as a result. The fourth extinction finished off most large reptiles, though the dinosaurs managed to hold on until the fifth came along at the end of the Cretaceous period, 65 million years ago. We humans are evolved from the small mammals which managed to survive that particular catastrophe. Each of these 5 extinctions resulted from enormous changes to the natural environment. Species which were unable to adapt to these changes perished, while those which were ideally situated to evolve and thrive did just that. Evidence from records which predate the Death Stranding indicate that many scholars believed a 6th mass extinction was on its way, or that it may have already begun. There was something of a consensus regarding its cause as well: humanity's destruction of the environment. This led them to sound the alarm, warning the world of what was at stake. At the time, the greatest minds of the era believed that if the ecosystem could be preserved, and if humanity could learn to live in harmony with nature, then a future could be secured for all the world's species, humans included. But that was then, and this is now. If the phenomenon we are currently experiencing is indeed the sixth extinction, then it must be acknowledged that humanity is its main target. Is this divine punishment for our misdeeds? If so, then I suppose there is little that can be done. Perhaps there is no way forward for humanity now. Nevertheless, I refuse to give up. I will endeavour to find hope in our predicament. Interview with the Evo Devo biologist. The Evo Devo biologist, 1 year ago, personal shelter. I was born after the Death Stranding, so my conception of what the world once was is derived entirely from documents, photographs and video. We didn't used to have timefall for one, just regular rain. No chiral clouds, only the traditional masses of suspended moisture, and one certainly didn't have to worry about tar bubbling up from underground. In most locales, humans could travel anywhere, even into space, and we were blissfully unaware of the beach's existence. Suffice it to say, there is no doubt that this is a period of sweeping change that will have lasting repercussions for all life on Earth, given that dooms may simply be humanity's way of trying to adapt and survive. A beach exists within the consciousness of every individual, but these environmental changes, they affect all life on a genetic level, do they not? That is why I thought to investigate them, and the medium through which I chose to do so is the tar which has become so ubiquitous. But you're not interested in that, I am sure. So you know, there is a very real possibility that we have already failed to adapt to the sixth extinction, that we are but another evolutionary dead end soon to be left behind. If that is the case, then it could be reasoned that the ones afflicted with dooms, and therefore blessed with an enhanced perception of the beach, are our successors, who will survive and supplant us. I suppose that would be a shame, but it doesn't trouble me all that much. My research will survive me as well, and the doomed sufferers can pick up from where I left off. They will carry on my genetic lineage too, for that matter. No, what worries me is that not even dooms will prove sufficient to endure this extinction. If that is the case, then humanity is doomed. It's certainly a possibility we have to acknowledge. But more than that, one question looms above all. Why? Why now? Why like this? That's what I want to know more than anything. Somehow I doubt the dinosaurs and all the other species that came and went ever considered that question. Worrying over the reason for this and that is a uniquely human condition, I suppose. Yet this idle curiosity may be the key to understanding and overcoming the stranding. Tar bubbles up from the beach. Aaron Hill, 1 year ago. Mountain, not city. I'd heard this area was pretty inhospitable before I got here. Got your fair share of mountains, obviously, and on top of that were all these rumours about a secret terrorist base or something. So I figured I was in for a bad time. But when me and the team got here, yeah, it was way worse than what we thought. Felt like we could get jumped any second, you know. I tell you what though, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw all the tar out west. Wondered how the hell Amelie and her team made it through, but someone said it wasn't nearly as bad when they made the trip. I was sent out to take a closer look and man, it was something else. And it hadn't been that long either. Hard to imagine all that bubbled up damn near overnight. Honestly, I felt like I was standing at the edge of the world. We don't know much about the tar, except that it wasn't around before the stranding. Same as timefall and chiralium. There's some speculation that it might be some byproduct of the beach, and that if you could somehow retrace the flow, you'd end up there. But that's all theoretical stuff. Right now, we've got a practical problem to deal with. One of the chiral relays we built is at risk of going under any moment. We don't have the manpower to relocate it yet, but we should once the second expedition shows up. Whether we can wait that long is another question though. Maybe you could tell them to get their asses in gear if you get the chance. Prepper interview the engineer. Engineer, 2 years ago, personal shelter. My horizons aren't exactly broad. That said, I'm not completely cut off from the outside world. I knew what Bridges was, and that they were trying to rebuild America. But when you're living down here, it's hard to see how that's got anything to do with you and yourself, am I right? My folks holed up in this shelter after the Death Stranding. Had a kid, and raised him in their slice of paradise, and together we lived off whatever Fragile Express was kind enough to bring our way. They told me tales about the good old days, but I've never had much of an imagination. Couldn't see how a country long gone was any concern of me and mine. Far as I figured, if Fragile Express was happy to keep bringing us stuff, we didn't need anybody else, and we certainly didn't need America. Whatever that even was. But then one day, I was looking at a part of this machine my dad put together. He was an engineer too. and I noticed something. Said, "Made in the USA," right there in tiny print. Got me to thinking that America might not exist anymore, but the stuff Americans built is still around, making our lives a little bit easier even now. You could say the old country lives on in its works, kind of like how my folks live on in me. They died a while back. Anyway, if they were American, I guess that makes me American too, and maybe the shelter a part of it all. Once I realized that, I started pouring my heart into building stuff to help you guys put the country back together. Terrorists posing as Fragile Express couriers. The Craftsman, 1 year ago. Personal shelter. The terrorists have been at it again lately. You heard it, right? About how they've been sneaking in and out of cities, disguised as Fragile Express couriers? We'll have another disaster on our hands at this rate, but it's not like we can just cut them out. We need Fragile's people to keep on doing what they're doing. We rely on those guys for a lot. Though maybe we shouldn't. I hear they're transporting weapons now. Why they'd be so stupid, I can't imagine. Spreading shit around that kills in a world where the dead are ticking BT bombs? Sure, terrorists are a threat, and mules a royal pain in the ass. But what genius figured escalation was the way to go when we all know where it leads? We need weapons. No, tools that can take down the bad guys without killing them. And we need the hardware in circulation gone yesterday. We can't keep folks from dying in accidents or getting sick. We can't keep them from dying, period. But the deaths we can put off, we ought to. Violence isn't just ugly. It's damn near suicidal in this day and age, which is why I'm looking to make a bunch of less than lethal gear in the hopes it'll prevent a few idiots from getting themselves and others killed. Prepper interview. The Timefall Farmers. Who? The Timefall Farmer. When? 1 year ago. Where? Timefall Farmers Farm. Me? I used to be an ecologist. Amelie thought highly of me and my wife's research into Timefall's effect on plant life. She was the one who suggested it could be used to boost agricultural production. See, Timefall's radically altered the ecosystem of the entire continent. Obvious, I know. Just as it's obvious we're powerless to stop it. So we had the idea of trying to use it to our advantage instead. Make the environment better, not worse. Easier said than done though. Take void-out craters for example. Local chiral density is generally higher in their vicinity, which correlates with increased timefall. With all that exposure, you'd think they'd turn lush and green again before you know it. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite pan out that way. Nothing grows in any of them. Might be the timefall's done something to the soil, but the truth is I don't have a clue, which was one of the reasons why me and the missus were conducting our research. Gotta say, for the record, that it hadn't crossed our minds that timefall could be used to help grow food. That idea was all Amelie, so credit where it's due. The Junk Dealer. 6 months ago. Personal shelter. Incredible, isn't it? This hourglass. See how the sand flows upwards? Got chiral particles in it. That's why it moves like that. And look at the shape of the glass. So elegant, so delicate. Just like the girl who made it. Hard to believe it's even of this world. It was made by human hands, alright. Crazy, isn't it? No wonder everyone in South Knot City knows her work. You can imagine how I felt when she gave it to me. I guess you could say it was a thank you present. She'd asked me to fix something for her, and this is what I got in return. You know, I've done jobs for all kinds over the years, but none of my other customers ever did anything like this for me. Most will just toss you a couple likes, and that's the end of it. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with a like or two, it's just... this was different. The moment she gave me this hourglass, I knew I wanted to be with her. Never happened though. Ain't cut out for love and relationships. Don't have what it takes. Other people kind of scare me, to be honest. Still, even if we can't be together, at least I'll have this hourglass. The Photographer. Photographer's mother, 1 year ago, personal shelter. It wasn't that long ago that we moved to this shelter, the three of us. Before that, we used to live in the city, until my husband up and said we had to leave. He was so insistent, and I didn't have any choice but to go along with it. I couldn't take care of our daughter by myself. He said he was sick of city life, and I can't say I don't understand at all. I mean, timefall may not have been an issue, or BTs, but I can see how a safe and comfortable life might become suffocating. Our daughter might be happy and healthy, but we're the exception. Hardly anyone's even having children these days. You don't need a crystal ball to see where the world's headed. My husband says we're bound for extinction, says nobody's doing anything about it. People would rather stick their heads in the sand and try to wait out the storm. If we don't figure out the Death Stranding and fix this world of ours, that's all she wrote. My husband says that a lot. That maybe he's just a guy with a camera, but at least he's doing something. And so on. He's out again somewhere, investigating something. Recently he started taking our daughter with him, teaching her to take photos of rocks and murals and the like. I'm glad they're spending time together. I know it's good for her education. But I still hate it when they go out and leave me here to wait and pray that they come home safe and sound. The Mountaineer, husband, 1 year ago, personal shelter. People aren't meant to stay cooped up inside or live in one place forever. It's not natural. Exploration's in our DNA. The great outdoors is where we're supposed to be. You know, our ancestors started out in Africa, right? Well, they didn't just stay there, did they? They wanted to try and find a better life, a better home. That's why humanity spread all across the planet. And as we've travelled, we've evolved. Little by little, we've grown tougher and smarter. Even our immune systems have become stronger. But if we stop moving, stop exploring, that all stops too. We stagnate as a species, maybe even regress. That's why we can't hole up in the cities. There's a whole universe beyond those chiral clouds that I'd love to explore someday. But if that's not possible, then I want to at least get as close as I can. Climb the biggest mountains, go as high as I can go, and try to see what lies beyond. And I want to do it with the love of my life, the world-class mountaineer who showed me the beauty of this place, my guiding star. Together, there's no peak we can't summit. The Spiritualist, 1 year ago, personal shelter. No one has been able to explain the Death Stranding, and I doubt that anyone ever will. Certainly not with science. Science is only suitable for observation, measurement, objectivity. You can observe and measure as much as you like, but it will bring you no closer to an understanding. Sometimes you need to expand your mind and open your heart. Seek the souls of the dead. Listen for the waves on the beach. In antiquity, there were no barriers between the realms. People moved freely between the earth, outer space, and the world of the dead. What are myths and legends if not records of these journeys? My research has only confirmed this. The pyramids of Egypt and Mesoamerica, the Nazca lines, Stonehenge, all gateways built by humans in order to access the beach. Surely you can see that the wisdom of the ancients has never been more relevant? The people of Bridges would do well to remember that. The America of the past, The Elder, 2 years ago. Personal shelter. Oh boy, you want to hear about America? Well, you asked for it. But if you're looking for some rose-tinted bullshit, you've come to the wrong place. I was an immigrant, you see. Nothing special about that. The whole country was built by immigrants. Right off the bat, I could see it wasn't quite the land o' the free I'd been led to believe. But for a while there, it wasn't so bad. Even bought into the American dream for a minute. I mean, hell, they let a black guy and a woman take a shot at the presidency, you know? Didn't last though. Somewhere along the line, people became so damned intolerant. All of a sudden, there wasn't any room for other opinions, or other people for that matter. We even elected a guy right before the Death Stranding that wanted to build a wall along the whole border, to stop anyone like me from coming in. Once that talk started up, I reckon that was that. How could I expect a goddamn thing from a country that didn't want me? How could I hope to get by and land where the weak and needy get fucked over for profit and peace of mind? So yeah, I figured holding up in a shelter was the way to go. Didn't know how bad things would get. No one did. But I tell you, if it hadn't been for that single decision, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. Just goes to show that the only person anybody can rely on is his own damn self. UCA? Give me a break. You're just pushing the same old bullshit, repackaged for a brave new world. Prepper shelters. The Elder. 2 years ago, personal shelter. Back before the Stranding, there was all kinds of companies selling all kinds of shelters. Hurricane-proof, earthquake-proof, disease-proof, war-proof, terror-proof. Probably had a recession-proof model for all I know. Anyway, any way you could picture it all going to hell, they had a shelter for it. And the guys building them? Military types. Astronautical engineers, amateur enthusiasts. Everybody and his uncle was out to make a buck. But if you wanted something that actually lasts, you had yourself 3 solid choices. First, there's your American Survival Shelters units. They were a global military hardware supplier. Used to build big government bunkers, nuclear shelters, all that. They started selling to the general consumer right before the Stranding. Damn good timing, huh? Anyway, those babies were the creme de la creme. Next up, you had your Millennium Preppers. They made it big, right after a string of terror attacks. Started out selling bank vaults and reinforced containers and the like. It wasn't hard for them to break into the shelter game, and they knew how to build them tough. Then there's your domestic guys. World Safety Housing. All about affordability, they were. Cheap and cheerful. Well, as cheerful as anyone could be after the stranding. Still, they did a lot of good for a lot of folks after things went to shit. So these ones are the unknown man's journal. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 entries. And they're all by the same person. They all have no date, no who, no where. So I'll just say the title of each one rather than telling you, repeating myself over and over again. Today, journal entry number 1. Today I made a delivery to a shelter near Middle Knot City. It was my longest trip to date. A new personal best. Back when I was starting out, people tried to warn me off the life, saying it was dangerous for prepper young'uns to make runs and that no one would ever really trust me. But what was I supposed to do? Kids without parents need to eat too, and it's not like I had any skills. 2 arms, 2 legs, whole lot of grit. That's all I had to offer. Worked out okay so far. I bring people what they need. In return, they do right by me. The more deliveries I make, the more orders I get. Never a porter around when you need one. So as long as you don't fuck up too badly, someone ought to throw you a bone. Helps that I've got a 6th sense for BTs too. Pretty rare that. It's probably one of the reasons why I get so much work. Sometimes people praise me. Tell me I'm doing society a service by helping my fellow man. Can't say that factors into it. I'd sooner keep to myself if I could, but I've got to survive somehow, and I sure as hell ain't going to manage by myself. Journal entry number 2. Another prepper's kicked the bucket. I went to deliver his medicine as usual this morning, but I guess I was pretty damn late. Poor guy wasn't just dead, but on the verge of going necro. Wasn't no time to take him to an incinerator, so I had to dump him in nearby BT territory. Better than leaving him to pop, especially since my own shelter is close by. Gotta look out for number 1. When I dumped him though, just before he popped, it was like I could feel the BTs reacting to the corpse. Saw the beach too. Strangest thing, but I'd felt it before. When I first disposed of someone. The sensation was stronger this time though. No doubt about it. Don't know if this means I've got dooms, but I'm starting to think there's something special about me. Journal entry number 3. A delivery outfit out west heard tell of my BT sensing abilities and has expressed an interest in bringing me on board. Seems they operate outside Bridges' sphere of influence, and they want to leverage my experience and know-how to expand their operation. Could be interesting. It's funny, I started making runs out of necessity, to stay alive. But that's all changed. I'm an altruist now. I live to help other people. Preppers around these parts rely on me. Hell, they wouldn't last 5 minutes without me. What would my daddy say if he could see me now, huh? He taught me man's his own keeper, but here I am, part of a community, working with other people, bringing the world together. Daddy always told me that the wide, wide world was dangerous, that we had to stay in our shelter, spend our whole life there, die there. Well, fuck that. Community is what it's all about. Journal entry number 4. A buddy of mine died today. He was out in the mountains on a delivery, and it was so goddamn foggy. I guess he lost sight of the trail. He called me asking for help, but then the line went dead. I saw the void out from here. Nearly blinded me. Guess he wandered into BT territory. There's not many of us porters left these days. Not many you can trust to get the job done anyway. Folks quitting or dying, going mule. Attrition's a bitch. If we're to keep on, we're going to need better equipment and someone else who can track BTs. I can still manage sometimes, but my power's getting weaker. I can feel it. Just wish I knew what to do, because at this rate, I'm fucked. We all are. Journal entry number 5. Ha and Ka, body and soul. The two become separated, you die. In this world at least. That death ain't the end though. So long as your soul's got a body to come back to, you can be reborn. Resuscitated anyway. That's why people built coffins and sarcophagi, to preserve the body so the soul had a home it could return to. I learned all this and more from an old book I found, The Wisdom of the Egyptians, chock full of interesting tidbits about death and how to overcome it. Like the golden death masks of the pharaohs, the ones decorated using magical adornments as an indication of the wearer's prestige and power. I tell you what, if we've learned anything from the beach, is that the Egyptians had it all figured out. That's why I've decided to give myself a mask. Not a death mask though, one for living, for ruling. Today's the last day anyone sees my face. I don't need it anymore. Journal entry number 6. A Bridges way station out west just got taken out by terrorists. Used a void out to do it. They dumped a corpse nearby and let it go necro. dropping BTs right in people's laps. Word is Demons heard that Bridges was sending an expeditionary force out west to facilitate the reconstruction of America, or some such. Guess they didn't take kindly to that. Terrorists, separatists, isolationists, all these folks claim America is coming for their freedom, that the old guard wants to put them in chains, make the individual subservient to the collective. They ask what it's all for in a post-Stranding world, when today's triumph is tomorrow's crater. Daddy used to spout the same tired lines, said America never did nothing for nobody. That's why we took to living in a shelter. Better down the hole than out there under their thumb. Yeah, he was a real saint, my daddy. Tried to run a few times, but he just dragged me back inside, kicking and screaming, where he'd put those heavy hands of his to work and remind me what had happened if I disrespected his authority. That's love, isn't it? His way of looking after an orphan child he raised as his own. He was only trying to protect me from the evils of the outside world. I owe him my life, and my powers too. First time I ever sensed a BT was when I held him, moments before he went necro. Just like when I dumped that prepper's body. My daddy showed me that corpses are precious, powerful things. They're so much more than bombs. Terrorists ought to treat them with proper respect. Journal entry number 7. I've had us team up with a bunch of porters who service the central part of the country. Had to be done. The writing was on the wall for my crew otherwise. And guess what? Their leaders got dooms. I've got a feeling we're going to be good friends. Demons and terrorists have been getting more aggressive ever since the Bridges expedition team set out. As if BTs and mules weren't enough, now we've got to keep our eyes peeled for these assholes when they're making runs. All the more reason we've got to come together, get organised. Me and my new partner, we've been talking about consolidating our operations so we can cover the whole continent. If we do, I suppose that'd make us like the UCA in some respects. Different structure and methods, similar ideology. A deep and abiding belief in the importance of community. But the devil's in the details, isn't it? Rules, structures, can't just let people make decisions for themselves, and therein lies the risk. Can't have us repeating the sins of the past with another USA. And demons, well, they had about to think for themselves. At the end of the day, a community needs a strong leader, and the God's honest truth is that I'm the only one cut out for it. Journal entry number 8. The rumours I'd heard about my new partner's powers don't do her justice. I knew she had dooms, but she's on a whole other level. I tell you, I've never seen anything like it. Not only can she perceive BTs, but she can actually use the beach. Compared to hers, my powers are nothing. Parlour tricks courtesy of a few corpses, but it doesn't matter. Not so long as I've got her. Before we met, I was bound by the limitations of my abilities. I was a blind man, groping for shadows of a secret realm. But now because of her, I can actually go to the beach. The beach! With her by my side, I can reshape this world. Not into what it was with the old USA. Not like what Bridges wants. Something new. Something everlasting. Right here and now. A world where we are free to do whatever we goddamn please. Journal entry number 9. My partner's powers are extraordinary, sure. But deep down... wrong button. I never knew YouTube would pause videos if you weren't looking at it. This has happened twice now, so why it does that, I don't know. It's on a playlist. Why are you pausing? I just want to listen to the whole playlist. It's okay. Probably trying to push me to bloody YouTube music. Anyway, journal entry number 9. My partner's powers are extraordinary, sure, but deep down I know the two of us alone don't have what it takes to bring true, lasting freedom to the people. Everything we've done, that we continue to do, no matter how much it may seem to bring people together, is still a far cry from the way it should be. Timefall, BTs, coral clouds, all this and more serves to cut us off from the rest of creation. And I have to say, I don't think that's ever going to change. Even people like me and my partner, we have our limits. But now I've met someone who has none. Someone who could save the world from this madness. Make it whole again. Put our shattered pieces back together. Okay, so this is the other category. There's only a few to go. Thank you for staying with me this long. An asexual world. Counselor, 3 years ago, Bridges HQ. Records suggest that the widespread aversion towards physical contact and intimacy was a phenomenon that had been observed even before the Death Stranding. One contemporary report, for example, details the increasing popularity of the sexless lifestyle among young people. A growing percentage of the younger cohort was self-identifying as asexual, claiming to be incapable of feeling desire or attraction. Accordingly, such individuals were less likely to have children or engage in sexual activity. It should be noted, however, that many other unique sexual identities were being recognized during this period, such as demisexuals, who were capable of sexual attraction without an emotional connection, and panromantics, who profess an attraction unrestricted by sex or gender, albeit one not necessarily sexual in nature. One theory posits that the Stranding accelerated the proliferation of these sexualities. In a terrifying new world in which BTs roam and annihilation is an everyday occurrence, people have grown reticent to form emotional connections with others. Although there has been no measurable decrease in human fertility, the birth rate has nevertheless dropped dramatically. Incidents of sexual harassment and assault have also seen a sharp decrease, which seems to suggest that sex could not be further from our minds, for better or for worse. I must preempt myself by admitting that I do not have any empirical data with which to support the following claim. That said, it is my contention that, based on the aforementioned observations and others, the vast majority of the population could be categorized as asexual. Flagged for archival review. Article advances a controversial thesis widely regarded as unsubstantiated and discriminatory. Prevailing theory is that increased self-identification of aforementioned sexualities is due to increased societal awareness and acceptance. Historical records indicate individuals asserting identities falling outside cisgender heteronormativity. Historical records indicate individuals asserting identities falling outside cisgender heteronormativity faced significant discrimination and persecution, leading to suppression and concealment as survival strategies. It is generally accepted that a variety of factors contributed to reduced sexual activity and birth rate pre- and post-stranding. Studies are ongoing. Fragile's umbrella and suit. Fragile Express staffer, 2 years ago, South Knot City. You think that thing Fragile carries is an umbrella? I can see why you jumped to that conclusion, what with the shape and all, but you're wrong. If it's any consolation, I thought it was an umbrella too at first. It's actually some kind of navigational device that Fragile came up with herself. I won't pretend to understand the theory behind it, but I'm told it factors chiral density across beaches and plots coordinates for her jumps. Fragile's got some kind of dooms, lets her move from beach to beach. The way she tells it, she kind of clears her mind and lets her powers do the rest. Maybe it's something similar with the spikes on her suit. When Fragile senses chiralium concentrations, they pop out. I'm not sure if she'd be able to tell otherwise. It's like an unconscious reaction. The spikes only retract when chiral density decreases. But who knows? Names and theories are just ways of coping with things we don't really understand. Same with visual indications of the intangible, maybe. All I can say is that Fragile's umbrella and spikes seem to help her hone her powers. Okay, the last three are from the report on the Void House in Manhattan, parts 1, 2, and 3. Recorder unknown. Recording date and time unknown. Where? Unknown. Who the hell? Those were the doctor's final words. At the time, no one knew to whom he was referring, and to be fair, there were more pressing issues at hand. The doctor in question was a surgeon, specialising in caesarean sections. The procedure he was undertaking at the time, however, was slightly unusual, and that he was operating on a mother who had been declared brain dead 7 months into her pregnancy. She'd been placed on life support, but since her blood pressure was decreasing and the fetus was showing signs of bradycardia, the decision was made to operate. Because the procedure was broadcast to medical researchers on a closed-circuit network, we are fortunate to have a record of what took place. Per the footage, the incision was made without incident. The plan was apparently to remove the fetus from the womb and immediately place it into an NCIU, where it would receive the necessary care. Prior to this, the surgeon would of course have to cut the umbilical cord. This is the moment that changed everything. The moment the surgeon's hand touched the cord. In that instant, he uttered his infamous last words. Who the hell? Part 2. Following a number of tests and experiments, the conclusion was reached that this incident was an annihilation event brought about by the doctor's contact with whatever, or whomever, he had seen upon touching the umbilical cord. Though it eventually became apparent that the doctor had been referring to BTs, at the time no one could explain the underlying cause of the incident. Some later theorized that the same conditions, brain-dead mother, fetus, umbilical cord, could be recreated, then BTs could be detected, and the mystery of the Death Stranding would be solved. Indeed, This was the theoretical basis upon which the government's own experiments and investigations would be conducted. They called the fetuses they used bridge babies, and the experiments became known as the BB experiments. Soon after the government's program got underway, the tragedy of Manhattan occurred. Part 3. The BB experiments were conducted at a Manhattan-based government facility in such extreme secrecy that little is known about them to this day. One thing that we do know for certain, however, is that the experiments ended in tragic failure and were directly responsible for the total annihilation of the island of Manhattan, as well as the death of the president, who had been observing operations firsthand. He was succeeded by then Vice President Bridget Strand, who shortly after her inauguration put an end to all further BB experiments and had all data destroyed. With her strong and steadfast leadership in the wake of the void out, she made great strides in quelling the chaos and unrest that had spread throughout the nation. She vowed to rebuild America and devoted herself wholeheartedly to this end. In response, separatists who opposed Reconstruction emerged and steadily grew more aggressive in their activities. One faction even managed to acquire documents relating to the BB experiments, and some speculate that this data was used to restart them in secret. At that time, however, no BB units are known to have been successfully created, and BBs in general remained a taboo subject in government circles. So that is it for the data we've got so far. If we get any more interviews, I'll add another video to the series, but I think we've seen a lot of lore there, a lot of info, and maybe even some hints to people's backstory and things like that. So I will leave you here. Thank you for joining me for this second interview reading session. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you hopefully soon on the stream where we're getting close to the end of Death Stranding. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening. Bye-bye.